Welcome to KJNB Radio. My name is Matt Fink, and today I'll be going through the different processes that we have here down at KJNB for using the equipment, getting on the air, and recording. Now join me in the studio. Welcome to the master studio down at KJNB. So this is an ARC-10 audio console from Rackus Systems, and the reason why it's called the ARC-10 is because it has 10 audio channels. An audio channel is like an input on a television. Essentially, you have multiple channels, and each channel has an input, and then the difference between the channel and the input on your television is that you can change the volume, and then you can also change where exactly that input outputs to, if that makes sense. So for example, we have microphone number 1 here. And once you understand one of these channels, you'll basically understand them all. You have microphone 1 on channel 1 here. And in order to make microphone 1 function, what you do is, which is this mic, what you do is you move it up to where the arrow is, because that's where we found is an optimal range. And this is called the fader bar, and that adjusts the volume. You turn on PGM, which stands for program, this top light, and then you have to press the red button here, and then that'll activate the actual microphone. So why don't we do that quickly? I'm going to turn down the computer. You're listening to KJNB Radio, live from beautiful Collegeville, Minnesota. So if you noticed, the bars were bouncing on here along with my voice, and that's demonstrating that it's working. The monitor speakers in the studio here will turn off anytime you activate a microphone to prevent feedback. However, if you do have headphones on, you'll be able to still hear your own voice. Essentially, what you need to know about the PGM program and the AUD addition is that it determines the output of the input. So the input is mic 1, and then we want the output to be the program that's going on air. So that's why you choose program. And then you have AUD, which stands for addition. Well, addition actually outputs to the computer. So if you would like to record your audio or your radio show, excuse me, you would turn on AUD as well. You can have 2 outputs at the same time. In our studio, you can ignore talk, because talk communicates with another studio, but we don't have that set up. So right now I've got both these on, and you don't ever have to turn those off. It's just if you come in here and you can't figure out why it's not working, that's the reason why. The microphone 2 works exactly the same. Once again, just put the fader bar up to the arrow, and then you turn on program, and if you want to record, you turn on addition, and then you turn on the microphone number 2 light. So just to demonstrate, you're listening to KJNB Radio. 9 out of 10 monks agree. They listen to KJNB. So once again, you notice the VU meters were moving, and optimally you keep them below the 0, below the 2, I'd say, between the 2 and the 2. You want to keep the volume in there so that way your listeners get a nice sound from you. Now, if it dips down into the 5s, that's perfectly fine, but consistently, you don't want it going above the 2 because it'll distort, and you don't consistently wanting it go below the 5 to 7 range because it'll be too quiet. So now on the audio console here, we have an iPod input, a CD1, CD2, turntable, mic mixer, and production control room, as well as computer and our telephone. The iPod, the CD1, CD2, and turntable all are going to be about the same function. The iPod cable is right over here, plugged into this here, and you can just plug it into your computer, plug it into your iPod, and turn up the volume about 3/4 way on your phone or other device, and then you would turn on program, and you would turn on addition if you want to record it, and then put the slider up to about halfway, and then turn it on. Now, the sound might be too loud initially when it's coming out. You can turn it down if it's bouncing above the 2, or it might need to be louder depending on your device. So then in that case, you would turn it up. But it varies so much, we don't have a preset level on this one. The next thing would be CD1 and CD2. Those are located in the rack down here on this bottom rack. And to turn those on, what you would do is you would turn the power on right here, and then there's eject and play and whatnot. And if you wanted to activate those, you do the exact same thing there, but turn on CD1 and CD2 and turn up the volume to the appropriate level. You can do dual discs, and you can also cue things up, change the pitch. They're pretty nice CD players. Next, we have the turntable. Turntable is operated the exact same way, but if you've never used a turntable, I'm going to recommend that you don't start playing with it. That is a lesson for another time, but the basics of the turntable is that you have to lift the glass, put the record down, put the needle gently on the record, and then you'll get audio coming from the record player. Next, we have something called the mic mixer. The mic mixer is down in that rack once again, and that actually goes to some lobby microphones. So let's say you wanted to have a band in here. What you could do is you could plug microphones in the lobby because the studio space is just too small, and then run them into the mixer in here, or the mixer down the rack, and then that goes into the console here. So we've got lots of options as far as microphone inputs go. Next, we have PCR program. Now, the output of the other production control room, which we'll step briefly in, goes to this channel, as well as it can go over air and a variety of different things. But that goes to this channel, so let's say you wanted to have 4 people on air with 4 microphones. You would turn on PGM and AUD if you want to record again, and then you would turn the light on this and turn the fader up. Now you're going to be getting any audio that's coming from that studio, including music and audio from the microphones. So keep that in mind. Now if you want to be corresponding with them, what they have to do is they need to go over to monitor and headphone input select and click air. You can be on air or PGM, but they have to be on air in order to hear you. If they turn on their MCR program, you're going to get a distortion and a feedback loop, and that's just not going to work. Next, we have a computer here. The computer is off of a USB cable, and that goes into our automation PC. We are going to be adding a additional computer onto this. But the automation computer, we will be doing that because the automation computer can be only used for the automation software. No YouTube, no Spotify or anything. The other computer, however, when that's hooked up, will be able to do those things. Now, if you turn off this is, again, like the other inputs, you have the PGM and the AUD on. If you turn this off, it doesn't do anything on the computer, but what you can do is actually it stops the music on the computer itself. Now if you want to start the music on the computer, it's set up with a logic, so all you need to do is press this, and then if you have things in your playlist, it'll begin playing automatically, so it'll just queue up right away for you. Finally, we have the phone. Now the phone's a little more complicated. But it's not bad once you understand the basics of it. Basically, how the phone works is we have a hybrid which takes the audio, and it's like this phone here, but it automatically will answer the phone for us when we press the button, and it'll hang up when we press the button again, and then it'll take the audio and send it to our mixer. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a demonstration of that. And for that, I'm going to turn, I'm going to put the phone on Audition because I don't want that to go over the air. And then we're going to switch the monitor and headphone input select to Audition. So that way we don't hear what's going on in the rest of what's going on air. So it's on audition, and now I'm going to answer the phone, and I'm going to have the monitor up so you can hear how that works. I'm going to press this, and now you can hear the dial tone, and in order to, that would be to answer the phone if somebody were calling. In order to hang up, you would press this again, and it automatically cuts it off. Now I don't have my phone on me to demonstrate this, but that's fairly simple for getting somebody on air. Now, what I recommend people do is screen the calls before they put them on air, so that way you don't have any profanity on air. And for that, I would suggest using Q. Now, every channel besides the mic 1 and mic 2 have Q. Q is so that way you can hear something before it goes on air. In order to do that, what you do is you would turn off the other output channels. So you turn off program, you turn off audition to make sure that they're not being recorded or going off of, going over air. And then you turn on Q. So we're going to turn on Q, and then and then there's a volume here too, and you can turn that up, halfway up or whatnot. And then it'll come out of this speaker actually on the audio console. And it won't go over the air. So in order to answer the call then, you would once again just press this, and then the audio from the phone is coming over this speaker here. And then to talk actually to the caller, what you would do is you would take microphone number 1. You can't take microphone number 2 when you're just previewing a call, but you would press talk to caller, and now I can talk, and it'll go to them, and you could just hold it while you're talking, and that way they can hear at the same time. Now let's say you've screened this caller and you're like, yeah, they're ready to go on air. What you do is you turn off Q, you turn off, actually you leave the phone on, because if you turn off the phone, that means you hung up on them. So in that case, you put it on program. Now, I'm not going to put it on program because I don't want this to go over the air. But so in my case, I'm going to put it on audition, which is a separate channel. I'm going to turn that on, and then we should be able to hear. Yep, we can hear it. Now, let's say they're talking. You don't need to press and hold the talk to caller button. All you have to do is have the proper output selected on the microphones, and then I can talk to them and they can hear me, and I can hear them through the headphones. So I hope that makes sense. It's not as complicated as it might sound, but yeah, it's pretty straight. I think it's pretty straightforward. And then you have the monitor and headphone input select. So you have air, program, and audition. In order to practice something off air, you have to use audition. So you press that, and then any channels that you're using off air and you don't want to go on air, you would select audition on and turn off program. And in that case, it's like you have a separate, like a separate radio like console. Like you're not actually putting this on air. You're just listening to what the result would be. And then by changing this to AUD, it allows you to monitor what sounds you're putting over the audition channel and recording on the computer. Program would be to listen to the program output, which shouldn't be any different from the air output. However, there's a difference in sound quality. Program sounds better, but I would always suggest to click on air, because if you don't have the monitor on the air and something's going wrong and your listeners can't hear you, the air is going to input select is going to be much more accurate as far as being able to diagnose a problem. Over on your right here, you have your monitor volume, in which those speakers up top, they have a little bit of a scratchy noise to them, which we're hoping to get fixed. The headphone volume is right above that, and that goes to these two headphones right here and here. And then you have the Q volume, as I brought up earlier. That concludes the equipment training here at KJNB Radio. And in a later video, we'll go over the Audition Studio, as well as anything you need to know about the other systems down here. Thank you.